gateway. So maybe you're feeling some energies, maybe you're feeling some stirrings, maybe you're feeling some aches and pains and frustrations.
Intensity.
You know, you're feeling some intensities or whatever it is. But this is the Lion's Gate. This isn't really, we're not going to spend a lot of time about that. It just happens to fall on that, on this Ascension Inspiration Day. So we welcome you. And I'm excited. My beloved's here.
Thanks for having me, love.
Yes, it's by design. I know it. And it's always good to be in your space.
Always good to be in yours. We're
You
getting
know.
better at it every day.
To be in each other's space?
Yeah,
Yeah?
I think so.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How are you getting better at it? How are you getting better at it?
Oh man, I think I know for me, it's just letting go, just being present and not sweating the small stuff like you said the other day. It's a lot of it.
I just wipe sweat. Don't sweat the small stuff.
Don't, just sweat the sweat.
Yeah.
Not the small stuff, yeah.
So just inviting you all to come to this space. This is episode 13, which has been I missed last week, and so I'm knowing that this reading of chapter 12 of a book called The Dossier on the Ascension by a master of wisdom, master of light, master of love named Serapis, who's had many incarnations on this planet, one of them being my favorite, which was King Leonidas, a Lionheart for sure, who led the Spartan army to victory over the Persian army. That was, odds that were just crazy. You've seen the movie 300. Hi Karen, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, beauty.
And so, about 14 weeks ago or so, we were in a breathwork session out here in Santa Monica, and deep breathwork. If you've never done some breathwork with sound healing, I highly invite you to do it. It was almost like a medicine journey for us. And in that journey, I went deep, and I saw myself in Egypt, and I felt this being named Serapis Bey asked me to read this book, to be a voice of his teachings on what is ascension. And I go back to, and it's like, well, that's not a normal thing. That's kind of deep and kind of big topic, but it's kind of normal at the same time. It's the Bible talks about it. Jesus Christ did it, and some of us may stay away from talking about this big word ascension, but not we, because it's the most important thing. As Bueller said, there is Bueller, Sir William Bueller. Bueller.
Bill.
Bueller.
Love it, Bill.
Anyone? He's now since passed, and so we lovingly just thank him for his presence on this planet and what he did on this planet to anchor the codes of Christ on the planet. But he said that his main message, Bueller, Sir William Bueller said that there's no other more demanding tasks as souls and as a cosmic race than to facilitate ascension. So I figure if he says this is an important task, I can follow the line and do our best to really talk about and transmit the codes and teachings. And it's a science. It is a science. And it's an exciting time where science and spirituality are coming into union and not fighting at each other. And finding those places where science and spirit are actually communing the same language, maybe wrapped up in a different word or two, but it is the same thing. And the ascension is a science. So, what is ascension to you, Ben? In simple Heather Grace Powers terms.
You know what? I think that's been our assignment lately, is really learning how to distill it down into simple terms, and it's just allowing the lightness to penetrate our own shadows, our own faulty thinking, the places where we carry wounds and baggage, and the ways that we've believed things that aren't helpful to us, the collective lies that we buy into, and the personal things that we hang on to based on our own bringing in this incarnation. And so as we bring light and truth to it through meditation, through prayer, through study, we become lighter, and we literally have an ascension of life that begins to take place, and we're no longer attached to the things that keep us down. So we are rising both in consciousness and our life experience.
Sounds like a good movement. Letting go of the crap and becoming
Did
lighter.
you write? I thought were you referring to a
Yeah, it's a movement. It's a movement. It's letting go.
It is.
Right?
It
It's
is
simple.
a constant letting go of the toxic waste inside of us so that we are light. We become light.
Yeah. So I love to read what Ascension Angels, actually askangels.com, and I always read this at the beginning of each broadcast. Ascension, by definition, is the path of those who are choosing to consciously step into a higher level of light. It's a personal choice to boldly step into the unknown in order to expand it into an experience that is entirely new. Ascension is actively choosing to evolve into higher consciousness. Ascension is merging with your higher self, opening your heart, and expanding to reunite with Source, Christ light, and all levels and layers of your authentic self. It is returning to the experience of divine light and experiencing the highest levels of unconditional love and divine alignment with pure Source light in every area of life. Ascension is not something that happens to us on a certain date. It could happen on Lionsgate for you. It could happen right now. Or we don't just unwillingly or unknowingly just stumble across an ascension timeline. Rather, through expanded awareness and by integrating the higher vibrational consciousness of our spiritual selves, we're able to ascend. So ascension is a process of aligning with higher consciousness and with the divine, the God presence, the I am that you are. I am that I am presence. When you unite with that in mind, body, spirit, soul, there is a lightness that comes in. There is a light that penetrates all the dark spots, right? So this is, there's a science to it. There is an order of things that can happen. There are initiations of sorts. There's purifications that can happen. So that's just kind of in a nutshell why we do what we do, why we're here right now in your presence, why you're here. Is to inspire, to inspirito, to bring the language of light, the language of love, spirit's language, to uplift, to activate. When you hear these codes, there's keys that activate something within your energy centers. All right? So stay as long as you can, and just happy Lionsgate. This is an opportunity. The Lionsgate is an opening, a gateway of sorts to rise.
Facilitate, this, the significance of the sun and the star Sirius, which is the next greatest planetary body in our solar system, rising together means more light coming in. And so literally when these gateways open up to more photonic light coming in, we are assisted to rise, which can also bring a little bit of intensity.
Rumble and tumble. What's going
because
on
it's
in
going
there?
to expose, the things that are not in alignment with the light and your own light, your own divine light inside. It's going to say, hey, pay attention here, and this is grace. We get the opportunity to look at those things not as if they're happening to us, but that especially on a day like today and in this window, that there is a force for us to become lighter.
Did you say force?
A force. I am one with the force.
And the force, I'm one with the force, and the force is one with me.
Yes.
I'm one with the force, and the force is one with me. But something I want to presence, we talk about light, and there's a lot of conversation of light, and we are embodying more light. But I did a post a while back, and I shared it with a brother today, and it's just people, you may look at Heather and I and go, my God, they're so radiant beings. Do they ever struggle? Are they ever fighting? Do they ever get mad? And the answer is, fuck yes.
Yes.
Fuck yes. I get angry. I'm a lion. Roar! I roar because this light comes in and it touches on the dark pockets. And, we do work with light, but we are shadow workers. We work with our own shadows, and we work with each other's shadows. Hey, you got shadows.
Right? I think that's our shift. Is I think we're learning to work with our own shadows quicker and not displace, because I think the tendency that can keep us kind of mired is we want to look at other people's shadow and try and rearrange their shadow as opposed to rearranging it ourselves. But we are, man. I like the term that we are shadow workers.
We are shadow workers, and it's important because there was a quote I posted. People often view the spiritual path as a search for the light.
Yeah.
In truth, spirituality asks us to bring light and darkness. I'm going to bring these two stones right here. We want to bring light. This is from the Eye of God in California. It's called the Eye of God. And we want to bring darkness, right? This is black obsidian. Really good to decharge. Really good to have. And so we want to bring these light and darkness together in wholeness. And in fact, this is the only possible solution. In our world of duality, any effort to focus all attention on the light only serves to increase the power of darkness. Our aim is not to deny or reject anything, but to embrace it all.
Yeah.
Right? You know what I'm saying, Erin. Hello. Aloha, sister.
Hi, love.
Thanks for being here with us.
Lionsgate.
Our Magdalena sister. You know, I want to share with you, Erin, something we were watching our dear brother, Dale Allen Hoffman.
Yeah.
And he's really one of the most proficient teachers, wisdom keepers on Aramaic and all the Aramaic ways.
And all that is Yeshua.
Yeshua and Magdalene. And he said that Marie.
Mary. Oh, you're right, yeah.
Maria actually means Lord in Aramaic. And Mariam was the feminine, Mariam.
Yeah.
Miriam.
Oh, the church would shudder.
Right? But they think that she was from Magda or Magdalena. But Magdalena really means, so good, pillar of feminine strength and wisdom. The Magdalens, and not only in our sisters, but in our brothers and those that carry the codes of feminine wisdom, the she, the ma, the lioness, so to all you out there on this Lion's Gate, especially you, Erin, as you showed up, you brought that force, so thank you. But it is that the Magdalene strength definitely comes from embodying both.
It really does, and I think right now is probably the perfect time to just remind ourselves that as we are roaring like lions, we equally carry the softness of that rose, and that as we're roaring towards the darkness inside of ourselves, we become these pillars that don't need to fight against, but can stand for things. And that's a powerful place for us to stand together in balance.
Yep. Susan Mary is a frequency. Maria is a frequency. It's all frequency. It's all vibration. So, aloha, brother Oliver William Huntley. Good to have you here on this Lionsgate window, brother. Thank you. So, we're going on. We have a little bit of time. We want to read this book. Again, this is a book called The Dossier on Ascension by Serapis Bay, and we'll kind of allow it to come through. But before, there was a mantra we wanted to do.
Oh, yeah.
Our dear sister Maura Hoffman.
So good.
Who, Maura is just such a special sister to us. She's working with the Resonance Project with Nassim Harriman and that group over there. And just thank you, Maura, if you happen to see this. You sent this, and it was so perfect. And so it's a mantra, and you may know it, those of you listening, but it's Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu.
Yes,
and it really just translates, may all beings everywhere be happy and free. And may the thoughts, words, and actions of my own life contribute in some way to that happiness and to that freedom for all. In that sense, may we leave the shores of our unknown. May we shed the garments of our old human flesh, the sons of men. And may we step into being sons of God. That doesn't mean just the masculine gender, but we are the solar son of God. And that we step in and we do all that we can to be that microcosm of the macrocosm. And so, Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Sing with us if you feel guided.
I love that Magdalene is in her lap right now.
Oh, hello,
Hi,
Magdalena.
Magdalena.
Marie is here, Marie Coach. You can hear it? Loka samasta sukino bhavantu. 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 Sing with us. Loka samasta sukino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukino bhavantu. Dance wherever you are.
Loka samasta
sukino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukino bhavantu.
May all beings be free from suffering.
And that's really the intention of why we're here right now, everybody. On this Lion's Gateway is to really assist the liberation of the planet, liberation of our own self, to reflect that which excites us and enlivens us. And thank you for being here right now, present and available. We're going to go right into the reading of this. So it's chapter 12, called The Adaptability of Man and Nature. And I want to put some music on in the backdrop, not too loud, but it's called The Divine Name I Am by Jonathan Goldman. All right, and make sure everything else is off, there's no interference. All right.
These hearts.
And if there's any questions or anything that come up when we read something, please ask, and we'll do our best to get through this chapter because we do have to get jet somewhere here. All right, chapter 12, the adaptability of man and nature, and it's also the penetrability of the sacred fire of God. And there's a quote at the beginning: students who would be made ready for the seraphic hosts, who are ready to become teachers of men, commune at Luxor with those higher intelligences and savants of God, and enter the very fiery nature of God and the divine symmetry. I figure we do what we always do.
Yeah.
We love to read in our home, so we'll go back and forth. Hi, Sherry Herndon.
Oh, Sherry.
Aloha, sister.
Oh, you got
The nature and identity of God is fire. Fire.
Consuming fire.
Our God is a consuming fire. The center of the minutest particle of substance is but an electronic ball of fire. Mankind have identified with the flesh. They have not understood the resurrection of consciousness from dead works. The concept of dead works implies that all men do is a form of subservience to the transitory and carnal nature of man.
The new and living way of the Spirit that involves the whole man here and now is calculated to bring about the transformation, not only in the outer realm of flesh, but also in the inward parts of the mind, of consciousness in particular, and an infusion of the vital energies of the Spirit. These have been deterred from manifestation because of the insultive barrier composed of mankind's dense electronic patterns, whose absorbative qualities prevent its interpenetrating the God flame from passing through the barriers of human thought and misqualified feeling, and thus making contact with the God flame within the center of each cell, of each atom and of each electron.
Okay. So what's that saying? Do you understand?
We've so identified with the flesh that we're like almost impervious to what that matter of spirit really is. And once we allow ourselves to get still enough, the light turns on, and it is a fire quality. It begins to burn up those things that are.
So there's a fire inside. There is an electron. There is an electrical fireball inside your being, and you're more than your flesh being. And we say we can't see God. I don't see God in my life. I don't see God's workings in my life. God's not real to me.
Yeah.
You know, the spirit, I don't hear spirit. I don't hear. And a lot of times it's because we've got our misqualified thoughts and our thinking and our believing, our stinking thinking that keeps us, and it's an effluvia. It's like a veil. It's a clothing. It's like, you know, there's a gem of gold underneath your bedroom, but there's all these clothes lying on top of it. And so we don't ever get to the true heart, the fire of God that actually transmutes, transforms, transcends, transfigures all conditions on the planet. We could have a different experience on this planet if we all wake up and remember who and what we really are, that we are the flame of God. And then all conditions will just bend to that. But we're in a process. We're in an evolutionary process of waking up and remembering who and what we are, that we are the flame of God.
Yeah.
That a flame is active, a flame is vital, a flame is eternal, that we are a God flame of radiant love from the very heart of God in the great central sun descending from the Master of life. Right? We shall consider then for a moment the subject of cosmic penetrability. Cosmic penetrability. It's almost sexy, right? Cosmic
totally
penetrability. This is the fire of God, the Father Spirit, the Father Presence, the electronic, the lightning, the penetrability of the cosmic force of Father God.
Entering the darkness.
One of the qualities of nature, which is vital for men to understand, is the quality of protective adaptability, whereby nature, when challenged, provides through its myriad manifestations an immediate reaction, a defense mechanism on its own behalf. The interplay of these qualities of adaptability and their automatically instituted changes in form and life waves resulting therefrom, which continually impinge on man's thoughts and feelings, create many strange patterns in the consciousness of mankind that interfere with the original and pristine intentions of God. So, in essence, what we're talking about is the fight and flight system inside of our being, in our reptilian brain, right here, right? So, in rock hot, I must get off rock. You know, there things happen in our life and we retract, you know. And that can happen in so many ways, especially in relationship. You know, we've experienced, you know, the fight and flight over these years, right? Of wait a second, you know, you're getting close, you're touching a nerve, you're touching this place.
You must be evil.
You must be. There must be.
Right.
She's like, I used to think that she was part of the Illuminati. That she was part of this dark force that was here to
take your life.
My light. Faulty perceptions, right? When
But
you
that's
believe,
perfect.
and all things become what you choose to believe it, no matter how ludicrous it is. But if you don't examine your thoughts and your feelings,
they fractalize.
They fractalize and they keep you guarded against the true light of love.
They really do. I think one thing that just happens, and we can trace it back, but when you have a faulty belief that's creating a situation, it's like it almost has babies and grows more faulty beliefs based on that one, until you're in such confusion that you can't see the light through the trees.
Yeah.
The Garden of Paradise, when taken as an allegorical concept, presents another aspect of divine reality. That aspect is the quality of nature to produce at all times beauty, love, and perfection in all of its manifestations, which stem from the original God design. Even a mutation, if it is guided by the intelligent spark of the Creator of all life, would endow form with an ascendancy, rather than a deterioration factor. Therefore, individuals must recognize that it is the same quality of adaptability in nature and in man, which when operating in reverse, builds defenses against the very progressive aspects of the original intent of God. Thus, many times, individuals do not ascend simply because they have created an inverse order throughout the natural manifestation of themselves, seeking self first and God last.
I think the domain of consciousness can be one of the most deterrent factors to mankind's progress when it is wrongly used. Consciousness is often the product of happenstance molded by environment, but it soon learns to override even its hereditary factors. As each succeeding generation creates a new fashion, retiring some of the old and preserving others of the traditional nature of man, the state of his consciousness becomes, in the main, most destructive because it pursues no cosmic constant, but carefully yet haphazardly entertains a multitude of human fashions. The effect of this process upon the consciousness must be considered by the aspirant as he begins to denude himself of the sheaths of grayed material and emotional substance, which, like globs of protoplasm or the hard surface of an alligator,
Of course.
make difficult penetration of light. We have to laugh because this morning we have a habit of sharing our dreams. And my beloved golden angel says, I had dreams of light.
I got taken to the road called Light.
Light road. I was light. And I'm like, well, in my dream, I had this little alligator running around trying to cause havoc. And this alligator met this little toy, and this playful toy, gobbled up the alligator, and all of a sudden it got transmuted into He-Man. I'm like,
Yes.
what in the world does that mean? And I had to look it up. The alligator, when the alligator is destroyed in the dream time, means that your worries are gone. We're good. We're done. You're right? We're in a really awesome moment, and that's what the alligator has been consumed.
Yeah.
The alligator has been consumed.
Yes.
The alligator
Has been consumed totally. And
by
again,
He-Man. He-Man, if
right.
you know who He-Man is he's the one that, from the power of Grayskull, I have the power! And he's holding up this sword of light, and the electronic force is just blazing him, and he rides his feline being, kind of like Durga.
And it happens the second we choose it to.
Yeah.
I think that was an epiphany for us, is like, we can go back and forth and we can still kind of be caught in that thing, or you can choose that I am finished with this and I will only serve the light, period.
And serving the light doesn't mean going out there fighting against anybody.
Yeah.
It really means standing in your mighty I Am presence, standing in the power and the pure essence of divine supernal power, which transforms and transmutes and goes before us, as David said in the book of Psalms, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For thy comfort you comfort me with your rod and your staff. There is a power for good in the universe, and when you know that you are it, you are emblazoned by it, there is no obstruction. There is nothing to fight against. It's walk in joy, walk in bliss, walk in pure play.
Yes.
As Heather and I often say, we're like two kids playing in the Garden of Eden, in the Garden of Paradise, in awe, in wonderment of God's creations, of the whispers of spirit. And how we go, we're, in a day in the life of us, we're like, oh my God, did you see that over here? Did you see this license plate? Did you see this license plate? Did you see this? Did you see that? We're like little kids going, it's good to be here.
It is, and that's not to even allude at all that it's Pollyanna, because like we said earlier, there are things that are going on in the world that require a shift, and we all know it, and we're all part of it. And as soon as we really reckon with the truth that we are it, like you said, we have something that goes before us that dissolves it without our human fighting and trying to get people on board. And
I mean, imagine like there's a game called Infection, but there's like when a disease comes in, right, and it can kind of close in. Well, the inverse is true.
Yes.
When we embody our mighty I Am presence, when we are that radiating center, when our Buddha column is lit it expands and expands, and it dissolves the thresholds. It dissolves the strangleholds. You know, Heather and I have been working on a powerful invocation that, just as a heads up, it's going to get easier, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to get easier for you, because we're working with these councils of light to help break the bondages, break the shackles, for us to be free, for our shards, the disintegrated aspects of ourselves, to come back into wholeness, to remember, to redesign, to reconnect to our true divine blueprint of who and what we are. We are not just this body. We are not just this life stream. And we have access to our parallel selves in all dimensions, and we're calling it in. And so
I just see that picture, that Mark Henson picture. Maybe you've seen it before, but it's just a man with a paintbrush in his hand, and behind him is all of the gray, all of the destruction, all of the sadness. And as he's painting, it's just this rainbow and color-filled picture of what we want to create. Oops.
I'm taking that call. We've got to keep moving here. So consciousness.
Consciousness has its own strange forms of projection. The world is iconoclastic, yet it has a multitude of taboos and peevish traditions which it is not disposed to lay aside. Like a room filled with stuffed animals, the average individual who seeks for a renewal of consciousness has many treasures and lingering mortal perceptions carefully preserved in the storehouse of his memory body, which he finds difficult to cast aside. Suddenly, to bring in the great God flame with all of its tremendous power would uproot not only the traditions, but also the sanity and the balance of individuality.
Yeah. And so when the God presence comes into our life, sometimes we have a breakdown. Where all of a sudden we're waking up going, wait a second, this marriage I'm in, it's not working. This job I'm working, it's not working. My habits of what I've been doing is just not working. I'm being called to leave my nets and go follow Christ. This is what Jesus did in the Gospels. He would call Peter, he would call the beloved apostles to cast their nets aside and come follow him. Leave your homes, leave your, he wasn't being weird like you just need to forget all your family. It was just about leaving the old, coming into the new.
Bit of a paradox. He said you have to lose your life to find it.
Absolutely. We prefer then that all who would make their ascension recognize the need for renovation. If you want to make your ascension, you got to renovate. For a cleaning up of the body temple and a complete renewal and purification of the mind consciousness. It is best, although it may seem to be a bit difficult, for individuals to decide that they will throw out all their mortal traditions and pet concepts in order to prepare the way for the coming of the great consciousness, which is able to renew the capacities of the soul and restore the active boundaries of the living temple of God. Know ye not that ye are the temple of God that dwelleth in you? Family, to ascend, to rise up, to really have the abundant life that is our inheritance, it's going to call for a renovation. It's going to call for sometimes a holy destruction, to destroy Shiva. Om Namah Shivaya.
I love that.
Om Shiva. Come in with that flame and destroy which is no longer good for my soul. What habits, what beliefs, what concepts, what activities, where am I hanging out with? What am I hanging out with in here? Destroy it for our good. And we're calling that upon the planet. Destroy what is no longer serving our liberation, what is no longer serving our ascension on this planet.
The idea of renewing consciousness is itself causative in creating a desire on the part of mankind to open the windows of the soul to the original purity of the God design. Most men and women are unaware that their personal measurement is almost totally that of man. They also know that flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of God, yet they know that the abundant life, the eternal life of God, was bequeathed to every man and woman as his immortal inheritance.
So there's this tendency among humanity, which is encouraged by the brothers of the shadow, and the sons of Belial who masquerade at times as angels of light.
Oh, but it's so tempting.
Discernment, 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 discernment. There's a word called palter. Look it up. The palter means, there are, it's basically in essence, there are wolves in sheep's clothing. Though someone may speak the language of light, they may say love and light, they may know the great mysteries, they might have an illumined mind. There are some that they're cloaked. And how do you know? How do you know? Well, we don't judge anybody. This isn't about judgment. This is about discernment. Discernment is a God quality. Be discerning in who and what you're saying yes to in Facebook, in liking and loving and in training with certain things and certain beings. There is our brothers and sisters who are masquerading as angels of light.
I think you raised a good question really quickly, is that how do you know? And I would say a simple way to gauge this is if it's pulling us down into our lower nature and the things that have enslaved us in the past, or it's keeping us in a certain frequency of, whether it's addiction, or we know that it's probably palter.
So they postpone the salvation of soul to some distant tomorrow or to the life hereafter. This mañana, which never comes, is a furtive attempt on the part of men to excuse their traditional sloth that will not make the necessary adjustment here and now in that era which God has intended them to utilize for their own freedom. As long as men are in a tunnel of mortal limitation, they cannot behold the valley of Shambhala or the wondrous hills of Shangri-La. They must first emerge from their own darkness and from the cocoon of ignorance into the light of the spiritual sun behind the sun. The fires of God, regeneration, are actually manifestations of the triune nature of God, of faith, hope, and charity, love, wisdom, and power, even of body, soul, and mind. Yet, these similitudes, including body, mind, and feeling, must be purified. Cause, effect, record, and memory. And that's why we work with the violet flame. This is a beautiful gift given to us as humanity to use to burn away the shadowy aspects around our four lower bodies, our mental, emotional, physical, and etherical bodies.
Therefore, we begin with the consciousness, and this renovation must admit the fire of the divine idea. The idea of the ascension must be considered as pertinent to the individual life stream and not something designed wholly for another who may be more spiritually advanced or more capable of executing the will of God. Each soul must consider for himself the value of the love of God that gave the radiance of his only begotten Son unto the man-child of his very own heart in a very personal way.
I, Serapis, say to you, when the consciousness is imbued with the divine nature, and that nature penetrates to the very base of that consciousness, it will, like a helium balloon, rise to the highest heavens of thought. Now must come the penetrability of the divine fire into the emotions, the energy of joy and happiness, which is the great motor of life, must be engaged on behalf of oneself as a manifestation of the Christ consciousness. And last but not least, where mind and feeling have embraced the fire of God and the wondrous essence of his nature, the penetrability of that fire into the physical form, the brains, the nerves, the muscles, the organs, they must come with a view to the elevation and the ascendancy of the whole consciousness. At this stage, healings and releases of tremendous spiritual power may occur to those whom you contact. We've got to end it at this point. We're not going to be able to finish this whole thing, unfortunately, because we do. So there's going to be, that's funny,
111, of course.
We have to stop here because, life calls, and we've got to get Jet off. He's doing this claymation class, a really cool claymation. He's doing stop motion,
little movies,
little Star Wars action figures and all that good stuff. And so This is a dose of Ascension inspiration, everybody. What we're saying is that there's a power for good in the universe. There's a power within you. And it may cause us to renovate. And that's what's available through this Lion's Gateway. Is as we're stepping in as an individual into the we, as a group, heart, mind. We're walking through the gateways. We're coming through the gateways. There's so much light coming in. There's a penetrability. There's a penetrating fire from the great central sun, from Sirius. There is this fire coming in to rise us up. But at the same time, this energy, this photonic light, will cause irritability if you're holding on to stuff that needs to go.
Yeah.
And it will smash you to smithereens. And you will experience